Source works in the root zone. It's actually a foliar applied product that activates the soil microbiome. We're currently only labeled on corn for the 2020 season, but we are looking to expand this product, or maybe as the sister compounds into other markets in the marketplace at some point in time. Source is chemistry, and I think this is important. There's a lot of biologicals and chemistries out there for growth regulators. A lot of people talk about foliar applications this time of year and which ones to use, and it's a very competitive space out there. But the key with Source is this chemistry, and the chemistry makes it more reliable and more predictable, we feel, than other biologicals. We still get the activation of the soil microbiome to increase nutrients in the root zone. And we also are, unlike any other product in the market, we're very unique and no one else is quite in the space like we are. We provide additional nitrogen and phosphorus for the plant, and we have a very unique mode of action in that we're a foliar applied product that moves through the plant and activates the soil microbiome through the root exudates. So it's a very interesting product. Essentially what we've done is we found a naturally occurring product. The active ingredient is proprietary chemistry. We've modified it slightly. When we apply this to the plant, we basically can stimulate the native soil microbiome. What this does in the case of nitrogen is we fix more nitrogen, and what this does in the case of phosphorus is we solubilize more phosphorus. So if you look at the last chart there with the crop growing, what we get is an increase in plant health and also an increase in yield. So we figured out how to switch on the soil microbiome through our chemistry and make more nitrogen and more phosphorus available to the plant. So here's another picture diagram basically showing how Source activates the soil to provide plant nutrients at the root zone. If you think about it, what we're doing is basically we're fixing more nitrogen and solubilizing more phosphorus and making more nutrients available. More nutrients means more photosynthase, more energy into the plant that can drive ultimately our yield. We're doing this through a foliar application at a very, very low use rate, and we're doing it with a large application window, anywhere from V4 to VT. This is easily integrated into growers' programs like herbicide programs that we talked about earlier, insecticides, herbicide programs, and some foliar products as well. You know, the early applications of Source are a great setup when you're trying to increase the soil microbiome. And remember that the rapid growth phase from like V9 and beyond occurs during that period. So 75% of the nitrogen and half of the phosphorus is pulled in. So if you're applying our product at V4 or just slightly after, you're basically increasing the odds and the soil microbiome to increase your nitrogen and phosphorus. And it's critical that you have those key amounts during that period. If you had a wet spring or you feel like your fertilizer program's giving out, this is a good time to make sure and ensure that you have the right nitrogen and phosphorus amounts in your plant. Of course, we know the other time it's really good is the late season applications of VT, or the brown silk, as many people say it. What's happening at this period of time is the plant is partitioning or reallocating a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus in the plant for grain yields. And it's really important that we don't have deficiencies at this period of time, where early applications really help us during the rapid growth phase, and late applications with the VT is really critical for the reallocation of resources, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus. I think what sometimes breaks the tie is saving an application. Some people are going to go early and say, you know what, I'm going in the field, Sam. I want to put my Source application with my V4. That's going to save me a trip. Or I always put a fungicide out at a certain period of time late in the season. And that's also a very timely and good time to be putting out Source. So in either one of those cases, it's a win-win situation. You know, in talking to growers recently and growers from last year, we had some grower panels and we asked them, what are they seeing in the field? And these are some of the results that we got last year from the soil trial observations. And basically what we're seeing is greenness and an increase in height, less firing back of the tips of the corn, and bigger ears, of course, and all of this and more kernel counts and heavier kernels. All of this is really our setup for a yield, which is obviously a determining factor. But in talking to a lot of growers and some of the panels that I've served on, some of the growers in Iowa, Illinois, and Nebraska that were on our panels, one of the things they shared were some of the in-season observations. So what we're trying to do is really in our R&D and agronomy program this year is better understand what's going on in season. And what we're going to be doing in selective research is really looking more heavily at our soil microbiome and how we're helping that. We want to see if we can understand at a root or very particular level the increases that are occurring there. The other thing we've heard from many growers, and we're doing a lot of plant tissue samples as well this year, Joel, is we're really trying to understand if we have more nitrogen and phosphorus right after the source application, anywhere from 1 to 2 to maybe 4 weeks after application. Because what we're seeing in the lab is very clear. We're seeing an increase in plant biomass. We're seeing better NDVI scores, which are basically just a normalized digital vegetation index. It's a real fancy way of just bouncing light off the plant. But what we're seeing is a 50% increase, which tells us that we're having more mass and more photosynthase, and we're getting a healthier plant. The flip side of that is you can also measure stress on the plant, and they call this a PSRI, a plant stress response indicators, and we're seeing a decrease in the plant stress with the source applications. So just to summarize, what we're seeing is increased biomass, and we're also seeing an increase in NDVI scores and a decrease in the PSRI scores. In other words, more plant growth and less plant stress. So we've seen this in the lab, we've quantified it, and we also have a lot of testimonials about the greenness as well as many other in-season effects before we get into the yield.